The Senate chamber was quiet at first, eerily quiet, like the heavy silence that falls before a thunderstorm. Then, with the sharp shuffle of papers and the clearing of his throat, Senator Bernie Sanders leaned forward at the podium. His voice rose with the gravelly passion that had carried him through decades of political battles. He was ready to confront Senator John Kennedy of Louisiana, a man known for his wit, his unapologetic Southern charm, and his knack for tearing apart arguments with surgical precision. Bernie thought he had the facts, the moral authority, and the fire. What he didn't know was that Kennedy was more than ready for the clash. "Senator Kennedy," Bernie's voice thundered, "the American people deserve better than the circus that this chamber has become. Families are struggling, workers are underpaid, and billionaires continue to walk away with everything. And what do? You mock, you jest, you turned this floor into a comedy act." Murmurs filled the chamber. Some senators shifted uncomfortably in their chairs. Others smirked knowingly. Everyone in the room understood what was about to happen. Bernie had lit the fuse. Kennedy wasn't the kind of man to let a jab pass him by. John Kennedy leaned back, his face calm, his eyes glinting with the mischievous confidence of a man who'd spent his entire career outsmarting opponents who underestimated him. Slowly, he stood up, buttoned his jacket, and walked toward the microphone. The room grew still again. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't need to. "Senator Sanders," Kennedy began in that slow Louisiana drawl, "you remind me of a rooster at sunrise. You make a whole lot of noise, but at the end of the day, the sun was gonna rise whether you crowed or not." The chamber erupted in laughter, but Kennedy wasn't finished. His tone sharpened, still polite but carrying the weight of someone who had built his career on never backing down. "You talk about billionaires, corporations, and all the evils you see in America. But let me ask you, Senator, do you really believe that the hard-working small-town grocer, the family running a bait shop, or the farmer putting food on our tables want the government to take more of what little they've got left? Because from where I stand, they want opportunity, not more Washington handouts." Bernie opened his mouth to reply, but Kennedy pressed forward. He painted a picture of rural families, single mothers, and small business owners who had clawed their way up without subsidies or political speeches to carry them. His words had rhythm, rising and falling like a sermon. He didn't just clap back at Bernie, he flipped the argument on its head, making Bernie seem like the one out of touch with the people he claimed to champion. The emotion in the room shifted. Some senators who had nodded along with Bernie now looked conflicted, caught between the passion of Sanders' fight and the razor-sharp clarity of Kennedy's retort. Kennedy's words carried weight because they weren't just statistics or talking points, they were stories of people he had grown up with, people whose struggles he understood personally. Bernie, to his credit, tried again. He brought up wealth inequality, the moral obligation of government, the failures of corporate greed. His voice cracked with intensity, his hands shaking as he emphasized every point. The chamber respected his fiery Bernie always had fire, but fire without precision can burn out of control. Kennedy, cool as ever, delivered the line that sealed the moment. "Senator, I don't doubt your sincerity, but sincerity ain't the same as being right. You can be sincerely wrong, and right now, you're asking America to trade freedom for dependency, and I don't think that dog is gonna hunt." The silence after that was deafening. Even Bernie's allies avoided his eyes, knowing Kennedy's words would echo long beyond that chamber. For once, Sanders seemed caught off guard. His passion hadn't been enough to shield him from the clapback. After the session, Kennedy walked calmly back to his seat, papers in hand, as though nothing had happened. But everyone knew something had shifted. Bernie wasn't defeated, he was too seasoned, too resilient for that, but he had been humbled. Later, in a quieter moment, Bernie reflected. He wasn't angry, well, not entirely. He respected the fight, respected the strength it took for Kennedy to stand his ground. For all their differences, Bernie realized they were both driven by the same desire, to fight for Americans in the way they each thought best. The clash wasn't just about politics. It was about passion versus precision, fire versus wit, idealism versus pragmatism. And the truth? America needed both. By the end of the day, the story of Bernie and Kennedy's face-off spread beyond the chamber. carried by headlines and replayed on television screens across the nation. Some called it the victory for Kennedy, others for Sanders. But for the people watching at home, it wasn't about who won the argument. It was about seeing leaders who weren't afraid to stand, to speak, to clash, and to keep fighting for what they believed in. The message was clear: in a democracy, the strength of the nation isn't found in one voice silencing another. It's found in the clash itself, in the courage to keep debating, keep listening, and keep pushing forward. And so, though Bernie had been hit hard by Kennedy's clapback, the real winner that day was the American people. He reminded once again that passion and wit, fire and reason, still had a place in their government.